we're like, women should just hang out together. We should do something, and it just became this whole other thing. So we're so excited that you came along, even if you probably didn't know what you were coming to.
True. Super grateful. I know some of you in here, some of you I don't, but I'm really excited to get to know you on a person. I'm gonna be totally honest with you guys. I have a knot in my stomach right now. I'm really transparent. I'm usually like behind the scenes, but I'm really excited to be able to speak to you guys and to be able to grow with you guys and for us to be able to navigate life together because we need community to do that. You know, we need a strong community, and the enemy, something that Erica and I agree on, is the enemy doesn't like when women get together because we are powerful and strong in God. And so that's what this is. We're gonna work together to make sure that we're able to navigate life in the best possible way with each other, with us watching each other's back.
Yeah. And what that's kind of gonna look like is that there'll be different speakers every month. So it's not just gonna be like us. It'll be like speakers from also the admin team, guest services,
you guys,
worship leaders, you guys, whoever wants. Like if you have a word in your heart, like we have topics and we could like create panels and stuff like that. So it's not gonna be the same people. So it'll be different perspectives because we're all different. So what I go through, you may not go through, but Kim might be able to like have a better perspective on it. So we want to shine different perspectives on things. So to start it off, because it's called Her Story, we're going to start off with kind of like what inspired us to start it. And then each month, there'll be somebody else sharing their story. And then somebody who's going to be sharing their word. So I'm Erica, if you don't know me. And so I started coming to Journey since day one. But I came like alone. And not a lot of people know that. So I came alone. Just kind of like expectant. I didn't know what I was expecting. I just knew I wanted community and I didn't know how that was going to happen. But I was like, we're going to do this thing. And so I started serving and like coming to service, but I would leave like immediately after the service, like right after the service, because I felt so awkward in conversations, and I knew some people, but like I just felt really, really awkward. And the going through awkwardness, guys. So going through the awkwardness of like actually feeling like rejected was like worse than what I wanted, which is I wanted community, but I'm like, no, I'm just gonna get rejected. So after Freedom Conference, I think that's when it really all kind of changed, where like I felt like that came off of me, and I'm like, I'm gonna just stop caring. Like really, I'm just gonna stop caring. I'm just gonna start talking to people. So in the lobby, I remember like I saw somebody, and I'm like, that person looks like they're like alone, like they're like awkwardly alone. I'm like, I'm just gonna go up to them and I'm gonna introduce myself, and that's it. And instead of feeling like seeing rejection in them, I saw like relief. Like I literally saw the person like, oh my God, somebody's talking to me. And that's when it like really clicked that the enemy had been like trying to keep, like he kept trying to make me think that my weakness was that like I'm awkward, that like I'm gonna be rejected. And that was like my greatest strength, which is that like I love people. And so once I was able to push past that, like I realized that I never want anyone to feel like that again. And so that was the seed, and then from there it's kind of like grown into like I want people to meet, I want community, and so that's what this is. And I hope that from here you guys just invite more people so that they can feel this community, so we can mingle and talk to each other and meet people that we normally don't get to see on Sunday. So that's my story.
Maybe we do see each other on Sunday, but we're so like run that we don't have a chance to stop and be like, hey, how have you been? So this is a little bit smaller setting that we're able to do that. So my name's Kim. My story is a little different than Erica's. I am a highly selective person with my friendships. So I didn't want community. I did, however, feel like God was, sorry to be honest. So I did, however, feel like God was tugging back at my heart. My husband and I had just moved down from New York, and I said, all right, I'm gonna just go for it. I started visiting churches. I came to Journey, fell in love with the culture, the people. The word was incredible. And I remember seeing Pastor Liz praying over Pastor JJ every service, and I was like, that's the kind of women that we need. That's the kind of woman I want to be. And so I stuck around, and then one day I said, you know what? I haven't really made any friends, and I really don't want to. And yeah, church is great and all, but I kind of miss my Sundays, so I'm just going to stop going to church. And that one Sunday, I walked out of church, and I felt like God said to me, you didn't even try. You didn't even give me the opportunity to show you what I have for you. And I said, okay, fine. I'm gonna join a small group. And I joined a small group led by Erica. And it was Life After Freedom, which is funny because I hadn't even taken freedom, but I didn't know what it was. And she could have easily texted me back and been like, hey, listen, you haven't gone through the curriculum. You know, I think this is a better fit for you. It was a total opposite. She said, hey, I'm so excited to meet you. I'm going to be leading this by myself because my co-lead is going through something. Come to group. I can't wait. And I don't know why I said this. I was like, yeah, I'm a little shy at first, which I am, truly. But it's not that I'm shy. Again, I'm just highly
she started
selective.
talking like so much. I was like, I thought you were supposed to be shy.
Again, like, I didn't know what the vibe was, okay? I didn't know if I was going to think y'all were cool. So, I'm just kidding. Instantly fell in love with her, fell in love with group, fell in love with God even more so. And then she invited me to her freedom group that next semester, which is where I met Sandy. I know a lot of you know her, and Keisha, and Andrea, and so many people that are part of, oh my gosh, okay. They're part of my community that have gotten me through some of the toughest times. When I moved here, I said, it's just gonna be me and my husband. And I'm good with that. I don't need anyone else because I have a great group of people in New York that I love. But then what God opened me up to is women of God that will check you and tell you, hey Kim, like, it's time to step back and not do what you're doing, but will also encourage you and be like, that's your dream, go for it, because you got this. And I learned that I wanted to love on other women the way that these women loved on me. And so that's what that is for me, is coming out of my comfort zone and saying, it may not be what I thought I wanted, but what God wanted for me was so much more. Mm-hmm. And so what came to my mind was Philippians, I think is it 4:13, that says, you can do all things through Christ, you know, who strengthens you. And God was like, but will you? You know, so yes, we can do all these things, but will we do them? And so that's what I'm here to challenge you all in. Let's step into our purpose together.
Amen.
That being said,
That's so good.
With that being said, Pastor Liz is gonna kick us off for our first hang.
Yeah. I'm so excited. I know. Oh, let's go.
So much pressure. Hi guys, how are you guys this morning?
So good.
I'm so excited to be here. I remember when Erica first came to our launch. That was already 5 years ago, a little over that. And she was by herself, and she's like, I want to be on worship team. She's so enthusiastic. But then I think the worship team had like a bunch of people, so many people. She's like, so I'm gonna do kids. Like, I don't care. Like, I'll just do whatever. And she was just super enthusiastic. I love you so much. I honor you so much. Thank you both for putting this together. Like, you guys need to know that it might be like a table and some, you know, Danishes and stuff like that, but all of this takes a lot of work. And they do this because they love you guys and they believe in you guys. So can we just give it up to them? How like it just continues to flourish. And talking about her story, I want to start out by sharing a story on the day that I told JJ that I was ready to give up on ministry. Like, yes, it's that deep. Like the day that I was like, babe, I think like you need to quit. Like, we're done. And so it was about 10 years ago. Him and I just accepted a job to be youth pastors at a church here in Orlando. And the youth group was like 300 deep. We hadn't even, like, the biggest church we had been a part of was like 300 people, like total. And so this was just a youth group. And I remember when we got to Orlando, because we moved from Gainesville, we got to Orlando and I was pregnant with my first son, Justice. And he's like, Pastor JJ had never led like a youth group before like this. And so he felt like he needed to be there every day at the office. And so that's what he did. He was just, because he's very dedicated, so I honor him for that. But he was there like every day, morning till night. And I remember him leaving in the morning, like we barely even had breakfast time together. He would leave and then he would come back at night. And it was it was just a new life for me because I used to own businesses and I was involved in so many things in ministry, but I felt like God was telling me to take a step back because I was about to have a child. And so I was at home just twiddling my thumbs. He would come home and I'm like, let's go out. He's like, I've been out. And I'm like, great. So I guess we're staying at home in a little apartment. And then I remember one day I had like a craving for, I don't know if the Hispanics know what like verdura is.
Yes.
Okay, so like if you don't know what verdura is, like it's just these, I don't know, it's eating something healthy, like root vegetables that are Hispanic. But you gotta go to like the hood. So I'm pregnant, and I'm like, I'm calling my mom, where do I go? She's like, you need to go to the bodega. So I went, but I just was like, I'm like, I don't know, because this is in the hood. Like, I feel like I need to go with JJ, but he couldn't come with me because he was so busy. So I went by myself, and I remember I was in. And now it's not, because over time what happened was, their weeds started growing onto our lawn, and so now she's like, so the line is not clear as to where like their lawn ends and mine begins. And so that happens in our lives a lot of times when we have people, our neighbors, so like our friends, our family members, our coworkers, where their stuff, their garbage, their situation starts to grow into our lawns, and what happens is that then we have to pay the cost for that. So like now I have to pay for Massey, this company, to come out and spray my lawn to get rid of these weeds where I normally wouldn't have to because it's, you know, nice and lush and healthy, and now it's not. So for you, maybe that's, you know, you have a boss who is not responsible with their work, and so then what do? They cross the line by dumping all their work on you, and then you don't say anything about it. You stay shut about it. You don't draw any lines with them, and then what ends up happening? You start resenting your boss. You start resenting your job, or worse, maybe you just quit. You know, maybe you have a friend or family member that they have emotional baggage, and so whenever they come to you, they cross the line by the way that they approach you, by the way that they talk to you. And you're not drawing any lines there and telling them, hey, look, you know, this is not okay, that the way that you're talking to me, or whatever, because then it causes emotional problems with you. And so what I want to do today is I want to speak to you about boundaries and how boundaries are important. The Bible says, above all else, in Proverbs 4:23, if you're taking notes, above all else, guard your heart, for everything that you do flows from it. So the Bible is telling us we need to guard our hearts because everything that we do flows from it. Like, it's our hearts are very valuable, and the enemy will attack our hearts if we're not careful. We start resenting people, we start feeling a certain way, and we don't voice any type of lines where they need to make sure that they don't cross. And when I say boundaries, I'm not talking about walls, because walls are not okay. Walls, it's just, that's like cancel culture. That's saying like, I don't even want a relationship with you. That's not what I'm saying, because we don't want to close off our friends and family members, our neighbors, our coworkers, our bosses. We want to give them love and show them love and joy and be an example of God in their lives, but we need to make sure that we draw a line. That's like saying, okay, I have a relationship with you, but there's a line here that you just cannot cross. So I'm going to give you guys 4 ways on where you can help you in your life create boundaries. And I actually made them spell out the word line to make it easier. So the first one is limits. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. This is in Proverbs 22:3. Again, the prudent, sorry, we don't have it on the screen, so I'm reading this to you again. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. You need to make sure that you see areas in your life where you got to create some limits. And so to give you an example, I remember my first like official job in ministry that I was getting paid for it, which by the way, when I say paid, like I think I was getting paid like $500 a month. It was actually with my brother-in-law. And how many know when you work with family, it's like, well, it's tough. Because like, it's just, there's just so many lines that are being crossed there and you don't know what to do. And so I remember I was working with my brother-in-law who's a pastor in ministry, and I was his administrator. And so that's why sometimes I feel Karina. I'm like, girl, please let me know if there's something that are we crossing any lines here? Because I remember just how it was. And so there was times where like, so at the time when I started working there, I actually, JJ and I had just gotten engaged, so I'm planning a wedding. There's just like so much stuff going on. Like there was a lot of things going on in the ministry. Like it was so tough. God used that obviously to prepare us for the, you know, ministry that we have now. But I remember at the time he would just text me like at 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, like, what's up with this flight, or what's up with this, or what's up with that? And I got to a point where I was like, I can't do this. because I wasn't able to block out time for like, you know, my time with JJ and then, you know, planning this wedding, and then there was just so much stuff going on, and I had to draw the line. I remember feeling like I was burning out, and I started to resent him. I started to resent ministry, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. And then I remember one day, I felt like God was like, you need to just create some limits. You need to draw some lines with him. And I remember sitting down with him, and I'm like, look, we need to have some office hours. Like 9 to 5 is gonna have to be my office hours. And then after that, he was so not used to that he would call me at like 5:15, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but
These office hours.
yeah, like you need to draw the line. So there's this book called Boundaries. If you guys don't know, if you already read it, yeah, it's so good. You need to read this book. What, you have been telling her about it? Or
She told me.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's so, there's like boundaries. This, by the way, there's like boundaries for kids, boundaries. There's boundaries for everything. Boundaries for your job. There's boundaries for leaders. That's another good one, because I know we have, you know, a lot of leaders here. But in the book Boundaries, Henry Cloud is the author. He says you get what you tolerate. So you got to make sure that you don't tolerate. And I'm talking about a lot of things, like with your kids. Like, let's talk about that. You know, you tolerate some things with your kids. You do so much with them sometimes. Like, they get used to that, and then they don't learn how to be independent and do things for themselves. Like the other day, I homeschooled. The other day, my son's like, "Can you type this for me?" I'm like, do your work? That's what you're like, no. Because I showed him how to type the other day, and I'm like, I know you guys probably don't have those problems, but, you know, fill in the blank for whatever situation it is for you. Like, what is it that you can't tolerate, you know? Like, tell your kids to make their own cereal and milk and put their dishes away. Just do it. Like, that's just practical stuff. I also wrote it this way: instead of practicing, don't get mad, get even. Practice, don't get mad, set a limit. So don't get mad at your friends, your family members, your coworkers. Set limits with them. Just be clear with them, and love, obviously. And so, what are some areas in your life that you feel like limits need to be placed? Like, maybe you're low on energy, and you're like, maybe I have health problems. No, maybe you're just not setting limits with how many hours that you're working per day. I know nowadays it's really hard because a lot of us work from home, so it's like we don't know when the work stops. No, set a limit. Put office hours for yourself, so that, I mean, I talked about slowing your soul. That you need to set a limit where you work and then afterwards you rest. Maybe you think that your spouse is being insensitive, and then you start resenting your spouse because of things you're not doing. I don't know, practical things around the house. Well, set some limits with them. Let them know. Voice those limits with them. You don't want to. I wrote it also this way: don't kill yourself for others, because then you're no good to others dead. So you gotta make sure you're not killing yourself on helping others and not making sure you're setting those limits. The second one for I is invite. Galatians 6:1 says, brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. And when I read this, I thought about how you want to have friends that are honest with you, right? Like you want friends in your life that could like show you the blind spots in your life. Like, how many of you, like, you know, when you're like walking around, actually this has happened this morning. My mother had like lipstick on her teeth, and, you know, right away if I see someone, I'm like, I hate that when I'm walking around like lipstick in your teeth or like something going on in your face and nobody tells you, right? And you're like, hello, and like, how long has this been on my face and nobody said anything, right? Like, you want those friends that are honest with you. I saw this quote that says, being honest might not get you a lot of friends, but it will get you the right ones. And so you want to have those honest friends. And do you have those friends? Like, small group's a great place for that. You know, maybe not first day because you don't know but like over time, and it's great. Small groups is great because those are friends that are also on that, no pun intended, but journey. You know, they're walking with Christ with you, and they're also reading the Word too and getting in the Word like you are, and they could be honest with you in areas. So do you have friends like you can count on to talk to you about your relationships that'll be like, hey girl, that guy that you're with, I don't think I seen you with that guy before. It's the same personality, it's the same problems. It's gonna happen again, you know. Or they're like, hey, you know, there's something going on, and with your kids, like I noticed that you're stressed out all the time with them, and you're constantly yelling at them, like, and that could speak life. Now, I'm not saying that you go around pointing stuff out, you know. And that's something I had to learn too. Is like when your friends come to you, when they come to you, be honest with them about your advice with them. Like, don't be afraid about losing that relationship, because if you're true friends, then you're able to talk about things. The third one is no, starting with and no. Each of you, just say no. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion. For God loves a cheerful giver. And that's found in 2 Corinthians 9:7. When I read this Bible verse, I thought about, you know, when you go to the grocery store and then at the end they're like, do you want to give $1 to like, right? Like the St. Jude song.
Yeah.
When I go to Goodwill, do you want to round up? I'm like, sure. Whatever. Like, I feel like I can never say no because I don't want to be that jerk. It's like, no, you can't give $1. Like, why? You're that cheap. But I don't know why I think of that when I read that. It's like, God doesn't want us to say, the reason why that's in the Bible is that God doesn't want us to say things, yes to things reluctantly.
Yeah.
So we got to make sure that we're not overcommitting ourselves.
Mm.
So just for practical, if you, and another thing that'll help too is like when you have your values set in place, then it's easier to say no to stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so like if you want a 6-pack, say no to the donut. Don't say yes to the donut. You know? If you're trying to get good rest, say no to that Netflix show. Like, who cares if Juan and Maria end up together? Like, you don't have to stay up late. Like, I've done this before. That's why I say it. Not Juan and Maria. I don't know what show it is. And you're like, wait, but like, these Netflix shows, because they give you the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right. So then you might as well just sit here and find out. Like, I don't have to wait till next week. But then you're losing sleep, and then the next day you're tired. So just say no. That's just like little things. But don't say no to like every event that you're invited to. Like there's this thing called FOMO. Well, instead I say FOBO. Like instead of fear of missing out, it's fear of burning out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
that way
that's
you
so
don't burn
good.
out if you keep always going to everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Say no to even like working on too many teams at Journey. Like I'm your pastor and I'm telling you, like, don't overdo it. Like don't be joining too many teams. Then you're gonna lose your sanity. Like make sure you know, like you're good with your time. And then a good one too when it comes to your relationship with God, because you're setting your values in place. Say no to those notifications you get in the morning when you're trying to read your Bible. You know when I use the Bible app and then you get all these she's like, yes. Notifications in the morning. You know what I started to do? I actually went through, it took me a while, but I shut off all my notifications. And then the only ones I get is like text messages. And so I'm not gonna get text messages that early in the morning, but I shut off. Like it would be like stupid shopping sites and everything, like, and it interrupts you. Facebook, Instagram. Shut it all off. Say no to it, so you can say yes to God. Because you want to make sure it aligns with your values. And you can also start by just saying no to, like, if you have a problem, say no. Start small, you know. Start with your family that live with you. The other day, my son Zane, it was like later on in the evening, and I'm like, he goes, Mom, can you make me? I don't know what it was, like a shake or cereal or whatever. And I'm like, Puppy, you know, this is Mommy's quiet time. You know, like this is my time to relax. And I was tired. I'm like, I needed my time to rest. And I go, this is my quiet time, and so I think you should do it. And you know what he says? He goes, okay, I respect that. Aww. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so you start out like little by little saying no. And so now I'm like, oh, I'm going to keep doing that. Like I love this. Just start out by that, like that, just like in little ways. And also another thing is that sometimes when you say no to things, like, to be straight up and honest, when Erica actually approached me about speaking here, I had to think for a second. I gotta make sure, like I'm really trying to be careful. And then I remembered, okay, this is to leaders and this is women, and this goes in line with the vision that God has for my life. So I'm gonna say yes to it. But I had to filter it, you know, through my values. Why? Because somebody can ask me to like, and I'm not saying that, you know, oh, I'm so special, nothing, but you want to make sure, because you can say yes to everything and overload yourself. Someone might ask me to do something and I'm like, no, I'm not, because you know what? I think that'll open the door for an opportunity for someone else to step in to do it. Like I shouldn't be the one to do everything, because that opens the doors for other leaders to step into the purpose that God has for them. So I saw this quote and I'm like, this is crazy. I don't know if you guys know Warren Buffett. So he's like the 7th, like, wealthiest person in the world. He wrote this: the difference between successful people and really successful people is that the really successful people say no to almost everything. Oh, that is so good.
Wow.
So just say no. So, evaluate. That's the last one. Evaluate. Evaluate why you have such a problem creating a boundary. Deuteronomy 31:6 says, so be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid and do not panic before them. For the Lord your God will personally go ahead of you. He will neither fail you nor abandon you. I think that the heart issue behind why we don't want to say no is because we're really afraid of like losing our relationship with the person that we're trying to set boundaries with. Like we're really afraid, like if I say something to them, you know, what's gonna happen? And I want to encourage you that whenever you set boundaries, either you come out of the relationship with a better relationship, or you come out of the relationship without one with them. But either way, you're better off, because you want to make sure that the people that you're in a relationship with are able to respect your boundaries. So to give you an example, this actually just happened to me probably like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I had to have, like, I'm just being real, I had to have a talk with my father, because I feel like I talk about my dad a lot. He's a great dad. If any of you guys know him, he's very loving. He's always hugging people. He's just like, I've learned so much from him. But he, again, like I always say, he's from New York. He's Puerto Rican. He's very loud. He's just really opinionated and just. So I had to tell him one day, because I wasn't comfortable with the way he's just very loud, and then how he talks sometimes, like, and the way he talks with my mom. In my house, like, we're just very careful in the way that, you know, we talk to each other. And sometimes he would talk to my mom loud. He's also probably because he's losing his so that doesn't help. So I give him that. But I had to sit down with him and I had to tell him, Dad, because I leave my kids with them once a week, and I'm like, Dad, I have to have a serious conversation. He's like, oh, what did I do? And I'm like, I need to. And I was stressing it for a week, because I'm like, the way you talk to mom sometimes, like, it's really like uncomfortable for me to have to tell my dad this. It's just that's not how we teach our kids. And like, I don't want my kids to see you talking to mom like that and think that it's okay, because I'm trying to raise my boys in a way that whenever they have their spouses, that they learn that there's some boundaries. You can't be crossing that with your spouse. And so I know this, and it affected me, because when I got married to Pastor JJ, I was like, I would go off and I'd be loud, and the way I talk to him, because I learned that in my home. And so I had to dial that down, and I'm like, I don't want my kids to learn that too. And so the reason why I say this is because I was very afraid. I mean, I don't even know what I was afraid of, but I feel like I'm just very like conscious of my relationship with my dad, and it made me realize like maybe I'm depending too much on him for like confirmation. And so I'm really afraid to talk to him, because I'm like, if I say something to him, what is he gonna do? What is he gonna think of me? And so I encourage you guys, like, that's why this Bible verse is so important. It says, be strong and courageous. I'm going to read it again. Don't be afraid, and don't panic before them. Them is other people. For the Lord God will personally go ahead of you. He will never fail you, never abandon you. So at the end of the day, like, our foundation needs to be found in God. And because, and if it is, then we're confident in ourselves and confident in our relationship with Him, that we're able to create healthy boundaries with friends and family members and coworkers, and we're not afraid of what's going to happen in that relationship, because we're confident in ourselves and our relationship with Him. And so we don't depend on our bosses for affirmation. We don't depend on our friends and family members for affirmation, because at the end of the day, it needs to come from God.
Amen.
So that is all that I have for you guys. Let's pray. So good. Dear Heavenly Father, God, I thank you so much for this day. God, I thank you so much because you have just taught us today just how to create healthy boundaries with our friends, with our family members, with just the people around us, with our neighbors, God, because you tell us that we need to guard our hearts and protect ourselves, God, so we don't allow resentment or fear or doubt to come into our lives. God, I pray that you would just be number one in our lives, so that we'll be confident in knowing ways that we need to protect ourselves, God. We thank you and we ask you all these things in your name. We pray, amen.